The morning sun cast long shadows across the military base as Colonel Sarah Martinez stepped out of her unmarked sedan. She wore simple civilian clothes, a plain navy blazer, dark slacks, and comfortable walking shoes. Nothing about her appearance screamed military authority. At 42, she had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon was the element of surprise. Sarah had spent the last 20 years climbing the ranks in military intelligence, breaking barriers and shattering glass ceilings along the way. Today, she was conducting an unannounced inspection of the joint training facility where elite forces from different branches came together for specialized missions. The Pentagon had been receiving reports of coordination issues between units, and Sarah's job was to observe and assess without anyone knowing who she really was. The base buzzed with activity as various military personnel went about their morning routines. Sarah walked casually through the compound, her trained eyes taking in every detail. She noticed the way different units interacted, the respect levels between ranks, and the overall morale of the troops. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but her years of experience told her to look deeper. Near the main training building, she spotted a group of Navy SEALs finishing their morning physical training. Their instructor, a tough-looking man in his 30s with multiple service ribbons on his uniform, was addressing the team about their upcoming exercise. Sarah recognized him immediately from his file, Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Thompson, one of the most decorated SEALs in active service. Thompson had an impressive record: 3 tours in Afghanistan, 2 in Iraq, and numerous classified missions that had earned him respect throughout the special operations community. He was known for his no-nonsense attitude, dry humor, and unwavering dedication to his men. He was also known for testing newcomers and outsiders with his sharp wit and direct questioning style. As Sarah approached the group to observe the training briefing, Thompson noticed her civilian clothes and unfamiliar face. In his experience, civilians who wandered too close to SEAL training usually fell into one of 2 categories: lost base personnel or visiting officials trying to look important. Given her casual dress and confident stride, he assumed she was probably some mid-level administrator who had taken a wrong turn. The SEALs were preparing for a complex urban warfare simulation that would test their ability to work with Army Rangers and Air Force pararescue teams. The exercise was designed to identify weaknesses in inter-service cooperation, exactly the kind of thing Sarah needed to observe. She positioned herself at a respectful distance, pulling out a tablet to take notes while appearing to simply check emails. Thompson finished briefing his team and noticed Sarah still standing nearby. His protective instincts kicked in. The area around SEAL training was technically restricted, and he took security seriously. However, instead of approaching with hostility, he decided to use his trademark humor to address the situation. "Ma'am, you lost?" Thompson called out with a slight grin. "The visitor center is back that way if you're looking for the public tour." Sarah looked up from her tablet, offering a polite smile. "Actually, I'm exactly where I need to be. Just observing some training protocols." Thompson's curiosity was piqued. Her response was confident, almost military in its directness, but her civilian clothes suggested otherwise. "Observing for who? You got clearance to be in this area?" "I have all the clearance I need," Sarah replied calmly, returning her attention to her tablet. The exchange caught the attention of Thompson's team, who were accustomed to their leader's direct approach with outsiders. They watched with interest as their Master Chief sized up this mysterious woman who seemed completely unfazed by his questioning. Thompson stepped closer, his tone becoming more serious but still maintaining a hint of playfulness. "Look, lady, I don't know what department you're from, but this is a restricted training area. Unless you've got some serious rank backing you up, you need to move along." Sarah looked up again, this time with slight amusement in her eyes. "What kind of rank would satisfy you, Master Chief?" The fact that she knew his rank surprised Thompson slightly, but he pressed on. Well, my CO is a full-bird colonel, and he doesn't even hang around during our training without good reason. So, unless you're telling me you outrank him— What if I told you I outrank your colonel? Sarah asked casually, as if discussing the weather. Thompson let out a genuine laugh. Then I'd say you've got quite an imagination. No offense, ma'am, but you look about as military as my grandmother, and she makes better coffee than MREs. His team chuckled at the comment, appreciating their leader's ability to diffuse tension with humor while still maintaining security protocols. They had no idea they were witnessing the beginning of a moment that would become legendary throughout the base. Sarah couldn't help but smile at Thompson's analogy. In her years of undercover work and surprise inspections, she had encountered every type of reaction imaginable. Some people became defensive, others grew suspicious, and a few became hostile. But Thompson's approach was refreshingly honest and good-natured, even while being protective of his area of responsibility. "Your grandmother sounds like a wise woman," Sarah replied, "and you're right to be cautious about security. I respect that in a leader." Thompson nodded, appreciating the acknowledgement. "So, are you going to tell me who you really are, or do I need to call the MPs to escort you out?" Before Sarah could respond, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors filled the air. A UH-60 Blackhawk was approaching the landing pad about 200 yards away. Sarah glanced at her watch and smiled slightly. The timing was perfect. "Actually, Master Chief, I think that question is about to answer itself," she said, gesturing toward the incoming helicopter. Thompson looked puzzled as the aircraft touched down. It wasn't scheduled for any training exercise he knew about, and the markings suggested it was carrying high-ranking officials. As the rotors wound down, several figures in dress uniforms began emerging from the aircraft. Even from a distance, Thompson could see the gleam of multiple stars on shoulders and the confident bearing of senior officers. His trained eye immediately recognized the insignia of generals and admirals from different service branches. This was clearly some kind of high-level visit that hadn't been included in his morning briefing. "Looks like we're getting some important visitors," Thompson muttered, more to himself than to Sarah. "Indeed we are," Sarah replied, her tone carrying a subtle shift that Thompson couldn't quite identify. As the group of senior officers oriented themselves and began walking in their direction, Thompson felt a familiar tightening in his stomach. Surprise visits from generals rarely meant good things for the people on the ground. He began mentally reviewing recent training exercises, wondering if something had gone wrong that would warrant this level of attention. Sarah watched Thompson's reaction with understanding. She remembered her own early days in the military, when the unexpected arrival of senior leadership could send ripples of anxiety through an entire unit. The difference was, this time, she was the one causing those ripples. The approaching officers were now close enough for Thompson to make out individual faces and read name tags. His eyes widened as he recognized General Patricia Hayes, the base commander, along with what appeared to be a 3-star general from the Army, a 2-star admiral from the Navy, and an Air Force brigadier general he didn't immediately recognize. "Master Chief Thompson," General Hayes called out as the group drew near. "I trust everything is proceeding smoothly with the morning training?" "Yes, ma'am," Thompson responded crisply, snapping to attention. "Just finished briefing the team for today's joint exercise." General Hayes nodded approvingly, then her gaze shifted to Sarah, who was still standing casually nearby with her tablet. "And I see you've met our observer." Thompson glanced between the general and Sarah, confusion evident on his face. "Observer, ma'am?" "Master Chief," General Hayes said with a slight smile, "I'd like you to meet someone very important." The other senior officers had now formed a loose semicircle, their attention focused on Sarah. Thompson noticed something significant in their body language. These weren't officers preparing to meet someone. These were officers who already knew exactly who they were dealing with. Sarah finally looked up from her tablet, her demeanor shifting subtly from casual observer to something more authoritative. The change was almost imperceptible, but Thompson's trained eye caught it immediately. Something about her posture, the way she held her head, even the way her eyes surveyed the group. It all suggested military bearing despite her civilian attire. "Master Chief Thompson," Sarah said, stepping forward slightly, "I believe you had a question about my rank?" The moment stretched like a taut wire as Thompson looked from Sarah to the assembled generals, trying to piece together what was happening. His SEAL training had taught him to read situations quickly, but this puzzle had too many missing pieces. The woman he had assumed was a lost administrator was somehow connected to 4 of the highest-ranking officers on the base, and they were all looking at him expectantly. General Hayes stepped forward, her expression professional but with a hint of anticipation. "Master Chief, allow me to introduce Major General Sarah Martinez, Deputy Director of Military Intelligence Operations, Pentagon." Thompson felt his world tilt slightly. Major General. That was 2 stars, significantly outranking not just his colonel, but most of the officers he had ever served under. His eyes automatically went to Sarah's civilian clothes, searching for any sign he might have missed. There were no insignia, no uniform, nothing that would have indicated her true identity. "Ma'am," Thompson managed, his voice slightly strained, I had no idea." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but Thompson caught what might have been the faintest hint of amusement in her eyes. "That was entirely the point, Master Chief. I'm here conducting an assessment that requires observing normal operations without the influence of rank recognition." The 3-star Army general, whom Thompson now recognized as General Robert Chen from previous base visits, spoke up. "Master Chief, General Martinez specifically requested to observe SEAL training protocols. Your unit came highly recommended." Thompson's mind was racing. A 2-star general had been standing right there, listening to him joke about rank and question her authority, and he had treated her like a wayward civilian. The implications of his casual dismissal began to sink in. Though Sarah's calm demeanor suggested this wasn't necessarily a career-ending mistake. "Sir, if I may," Thompson addressed General Chen, then looked at Sarah. "Ma'am, I apologize for not recognizing. I was following security protocols, but I should have—" Sarah raised a hand, slightly cutting him off. "Master Chief, you did exactly what you should have done. You identified an unknown person in a restricted area and questioned their authority to be there. That's textbook security procedure." Admiral Patricia Wong, the Navy 2-star, nodded approvingly. "General Martinez specifically asked us not to announce her visit precisely because she wanted to see how personnel would react to an unidentified observer. Your response was exemplary." Thompson felt some of the tension leave his shoulders, but he was still processing the surreal nature of the situation. "Thank you, ma'am. But I have to ask, why the civilian clothes? Wouldn't it have been easier to just wear dress uniform?" Sarah's expression shifted slightly, showing the first real hint of her personality beyond the professional facade. "Master Chief, how differently would you and your team have behaved if a 2-star general in full dress uniform had shown up to observe your training?" The question hit Thompson immediately. "We would have been on our absolute best behavior. Everything would have been by the book. No shortcuts, no real-world adaptations." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "I need to see how units actually operate, not how they think they should operate when they know they're being evaluated." "Your natural reaction to an unknown civilian in your area tells me more about your security awareness than any formal inspection ever could." General Hayes added, "General Martinez has been observing various units across the base for the past 3 days. Most personnel have assumed she was either lost, a contractor, or a visiting family member." Thompson's respect for the woman standing before him was growing rapidly. The idea of a two-star general spending days wandering around in civilian clothes, allowing herself to be questioned and potentially dismissed by subordinates, demonstrated a level of dedication to getting accurate information that impressed him. "What did you observe during our briefing, ma'am?" Thompson asked, his curiosity overcoming his nervousness. Sarah consulted her tablet briefly. "Your team showed excellent cohesion. The way they responded to your leadership was natural and confident, suggesting genuine respect rather than fear-based compliance. Your briefing was thorough but efficient, and you adjusted your explanation when you noticed Petty Officer Rodriguez needed clarification on the communication protocols." Thompson was surprised she had caught that detail. Rodriguez was one of his newer team members, and Thompson had indeed noticed his confused expression during the technical briefing. The adjustment had been subtle, but apparently not subtle enough to escape Sarah's attention. "Your security questioning of me was appropriate and persistent without being hostile," Sarah continued. "You maintained humor while still being firm about your responsibilities." That's exactly the kind of leadership style that builds unit cohesion. The Air Force Brigadier General, whom Thompson now recognized as General Michael Foster, spoke up. "General Martinez, perhaps you should tell the Master Chief about some of your other observations." Sarah nodded, turning her attention back to Thompson. "Over the past 3 days, I've witnessed 12 different interactions between service members and what they perceived as unauthorized civilians. Responses ranged from complete indifference to unnecessary aggression. Yours was one of only 3 that struck the right balance of friendliness, firmness, and appropriate security awareness." Thompson felt a surge of pride, both for himself and his training standards. "Thank you, ma'am. That's good to hear." "It is," Sarah agreed. "But what impressed me most was your willingness to stand your ground even when I claimed to outrank your commanding officer. Lesser leaders might have backed down immediately or become defensive. You maintained your position while remaining respectful." General Chen nodded. "That's exactly the kind of leadership quality we need in joint operations, the ability to maintain standards regardless of outside pressure." Thompson was beginning to understand that this encounter was more than just a chance meeting. "Ma'am, is this part of a larger evaluation?" Sarah exchanged glances with the other officers before responding. "The Pentagon is conducting a comprehensive review of inter-service cooperation protocols. Your base was selected because it handles more joint training exercises than any other facility in the region. My job is to identify best practices and areas for improvement. And your unit," Admiral Wong added, "represents one of the best examples of how elite forces can maintain their specialized identity while working effectively with other branches." Thompson felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "What happens next, ma'am?" "Next," Sarah said, "I observe your joint training exercise this afternoon, but this time you'll know who I am. I'm curious to see if that knowledge changes anything about how you conduct the training." The challenge in her voice was subtle, but unmistakable. Thompson recognized it as the kind of test that could either validate his earlier performance or expose it as mere luck. "Ma'am, with respect, I don't think it will change anything," Thompson replied confidently. "My team knows their jobs, and they do them the same way regardless of who's watching." "We'll see," Sarah said, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I've found that knowledge of observation often reveals as much about a unit as the observation itself." General Hayes checked her watch. "Speaking of which, we should let the Master Chief get back to his preparations. The joint exercise begins at 1400 hours, and I understand there are some complex scenarios planned." Thompson nodded. "Yes, ma'am. We're running 3 different scenarios with the Rangers and the PJ teams: urban warfare, hostage rescue, and coordinated extraction. Scenarios that will test not just individual unit capabilities, but communication and coordination between branches," Sarah observed. "Exactly, ma'am. It's designed to simulate real-world conditions where we might have to work together with minimal planning time." Sarah made a note on her tablet. That's precisely what I need to see. Authentic inter-service cooperation under pressure. As the group of senior officers prepared to move on, Thompson realized he had one more question. Ma'am, if you don't mind me asking, how did you end up in military intelligence? It's not exactly a common path to general officer rank. Sarah paused, considering her answer. I started as a linguistic specialist, Master Chief. Turns out that understanding how people communicate, both what they say and what they don't say, is valuable whether you're interrogating prisoners or assessing military units. And sometimes, General Foster added with a grin, it means spending 3 days pretending to be a lost civilian so you can see how people really behave. Thompson laughed, finally feeling comfortable enough to show his appreciation for the elaborate nature of the test. Ma'am, I have to admit this is definitely not how I expected my morning to go. The best intelligence often comes from unexpected sources, Master Chief, Sarah replied. Today you've taught me something valuable about leadership under uncertainty. This afternoon I'll see how you apply that leadership when you know you're being evaluated. As the generals began to move away, Thompson called out, Ma'am, one last question. What gave you the idea to test us this way? Sarah turned back, her expression thoughtful. 20 years ago, I was a young captain who thought I had all the answers. A wise sergeant major taught me that the true measure of a leader isn't how they perform when they know they're being watched, but how they behave when they think no one important is paying attention. With that, she followed the other officers toward the next part of their inspection tour, leaving Thompson standing with his team, who had remained silent throughout the entire exchange, but had absorbed every word. As the afternoon sun climbed higher, Thompson found himself in an unusual position. For the first time in his career, he was about to conduct a training exercise, knowing that a 2-star general would be watching every move. The knowledge created an interesting psychological challenge. How do you maintain authenticity when you're acutely aware of being evaluated? His team had assembled in the briefing room, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and nervous energy. Word of the morning's encounter had spread through the unit, though Thompson had kept the details brief during their pre-exercise meeting. All right, listen up, Thompson addressed his team. This afternoon's exercise is going to have some observers, including the general I met this morning. But here's the thing. We're going to run this exactly like we always do. No special performances, no showing off, just professional execution of the mission. Petty Officer Rodriguez raised his hand. Master Chief, what exactly did she want to know about us? Thompson considered his answer carefully. She's evaluating how different branches work together. Our job is to prove that SEALs can collaborate effectively without losing our edge. We do that by being ourselves, not by trying to impress anyone. Chief Petty Officer Martinez, Thompson's second-in-command, spoke up. So we treat it like any other joint exercise? Exactly like any other joint exercise, Thompson confirmed. The only difference is that today, our performance might influence how the Pentagon structures future operations. The weight of that responsibility settled over the room. These men were accustomed to high-stakes missions, but the idea that their training exercise could impact military policy added a new dimension to the pressure. At precisely 1400 hours, Thompson led his team to the designated training area. The urban warfare simulation zone was an impressive setup, a mock city environment complete with multi-story buildings, narrow alleys, and realistic obstacles. Army Rangers and Air Force pararescue specialists were already in position, each unit maintaining their distinct operational styles while preparing for integrated scenarios. Sarah stood at the observation platform alongside the other senior officers, but Thompson noticed she had changed into military fatigues. She now wore the insignia of her rank prominently, transforming from the mysterious civilian observer into the clearly identifiable general officer she truly was. The first scenario began with a simulated hostage situation in a 3-story building. Intelligence reports indicated multiple hostiles, unknown number of hostages, and potential booby traps. The exercise required the 3 units to coordinate their approach without extensive planning time. Thompson watched as Captain Rivera, the Army Ranger team leader, approached for the initial coordination meeting. The captain was clearly aware of the high-level observation, but his professionalism remained intact. "How do you want to approach this, Master Chief?" Rivera asked, studying the building layout. "Your Rangers are better suited for the initial breach and clearing operations," Thompson replied. "We'll take the technical entry points and handle any water-based escape routes. What do you need from the Air Force team?" Technical Sergeant Williams, leading the para-rescue unit, stepped forward. "We can provide overwatch and immediate medical support for any recovered hostages. Our equipment package includes advanced life support capabilities." Thompson nodded, appreciating the straightforward collaboration. "Rivera, what's your timeline?" "Give us 8 minutes for positioning, then we go in coordinated," the captain responded. As the teams moved into position, Thompson caught a glimpse of Sarah taking notes. Her expression remained neutral, but he could see her eyes tracking the communication patterns between the different units. The exercise unfolded with military precision. Rangers breached the main entrance, while SEALs entered through secondary access points. The Air Force team maintained perimeter security and casualty collection points. Communication between units was clear, efficient, and professional. When simulated hostages were located, the coordination became even more critical. Each team had to manage their sector while ensuring safe passage for evacuated civilians. Thompson watched his SEALs adapt their typical aggressive tactics to accommodate the presence of non-combatants, demonstrating the flexibility that elite units prided themselves on. "Contact! Second floor! Northeast corner!" Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. "Rangers moving to support," Captain Rivera responded immediately. "Air Force ready for immediate casualty evacuation," Technical Sergeant Williams confirmed. The exercise concluded with all simulated hostages safely evacuated and all simulated threats neutralized. The coordination had been smooth, professional, and effective. During the brief after-action review, Thompson noticed Sarah approaching their group. This time, her general's insignia made her authority unmistakable, and the dynamic felt completely different from their morning encounter. "Outstanding execution," Sarah addressed the combined group of team leaders. "I observed clear communication, mutual respect for different operational capabilities, and seamless adaptation when circumstances changed." Captain Rivera spoke first. "Thank you, ma'am. Master Chief Thompson made the coordination much easier by recognizing our respective strengths." Sarah turned to Thompson. "Master Chief, how did knowing you were being observed change your approach?" Thompson had been thinking about this question since the morning. "Ma'am, it made me more conscious of explaining our reasoning to the other team leaders. Normally, we might communicate in shorter bursts, assuming everyone understands SEAL tactics. Today, I made sure to be explicit about our capabilities and limitations." "And did that improve or hinder the operation?" "Improved it, ma'am. The extra communication actually enhanced coordination. Captain Rivera and Technical Sergeant Williams could make better decisions when they understood exactly what we were bringing to the mission." Sarah made notes, then addressed the other team leaders. "Do you agree with that assessment?" Technical Sergeant Williams nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, ma'am. Usually we work with other units based on general assumptions about their capabilities. Today's explicit communication eliminated guesswork and reduced reaction time." Captain Rivera added, "The Master Chief's willingness to acknowledge our unit's strengths in urban warfare actually made the whole team more effective. Sometimes elite units can be protective of their operational territory." Sarah's expression showed satisfaction with these responses. "What you've demonstrated today is exactly what the Pentagon hopes to achieve in joint operations, maintaining unit identity while maximizing combined effectiveness." She turned specifically to Thompson. "Master Chief, This morning you questioned whether I outranked your commanding officer. This afternoon you've proven that you understand the difference between respecting rank and respecting competence. Thompson wasn't entirely sure how to respond to that observation, so he remained quiet. Your morning reaction showed appropriate security awareness and loyalty to your chain of command, Sarah continued. Your afternoon performance showed the leadership flexibility that makes joint operations successful. Both responses were correct for their respective situations. General Hayes stepped forward. General Martinez, what are your preliminary conclusions about this facility's joint training effectiveness? Sarah consulted her tablet before responding. The individual unit competencies are exceptional. The inter-service cooperation demonstrated here exceeds standards I've observed at other facilities. The leadership quality at the operational level is outstanding. She paused, looking directly at Thompson and the other team leaders. However, the real test isn't how you perform in controlled exercises. It's how these lessons translate to actual operational environments where planning time is minimal and stakes are real. General Chen spoke up. Are you recommending any changes to current training protocols? I'm recommending that this facility's joint training model be expanded to other installations, Sarah replied. The combination of high individual standards and collaborative flexibility should be the template for future joint operations training. Thompson felt a surge of pride, both for his team and for the base as a whole. The morning's encounter had evolved into an afternoon of validation for everything they had worked to achieve. Sarah addressed Thompson one final time. Master Chief, you mentioned this morning that your grandmother makes better coffee than MREs. Is that assessment still accurate? Thompson grinned, recognizing the callback to his earlier joke. Yes, ma'am, that assessment stands, though I have to admit, working with exceptional leaders makes even MRE coffee taste better. Sarah smiled genuinely for the first time all day. In that case, Master Chief, mission accomplished. As the senior officers prepared to depart, Thompson realized that the day's events had taught him something valuable about leadership that went beyond military protocols. Sometimes the most important tests come disguised as ordinary interactions, and the truest measure of character is how people behave when they believe their actions don't matter. The story would spread throughout the military community, not as an embarrassing mistake, but as an example of how authentic leadership responds to unexpected challenges. Sarah's unconventional assessment method had revealed something important about the nature of military professionalism. That the best leaders maintain their standards regardless of who might be watching, and that true excellence emerges not from performing for observers, but from consistently doing the right thing. Years later, Thompson would use the story to teach his own subordinates about the importance of maintaining integrity in all circumstances. And somewhere in the Pentagon, Sarah's report would influence training protocols across the military, ensuring that the lessons learned from a simple morning encounter would continue to improve joint operations for years to come. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as the exercise concluded, but the impact of the day's lessons would extend far beyond the training facility where a Navy SEAL had asked about rank as a joke, only to discover that sometimes the most powerful leaders are those who choose not to announce their authority until the moment demands it.